Good morning. Welcome in everyone to HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I think it's still morning. Yeah, it's not noon yet. I'm Kevin McPherson. It's Wednesday, hump day, so you know what that means. Well, make it mean what you need it to mean. Go make it happen today, everyone. A lot of people look at the middle of the week as kind of like, okay, weekend's almost here. We're getting there. In Arkansas Razorbacks basketball, the news, it's been a busy week. Some of it great news so far. The other part that you're waiting on today probably not going to shake out like all of us would like to see, but you know, I never rule out anything. I've not been at 100% that it do Thiero. That's who we're talking about. We all know that. Not haven't been and won't be until we hear some finality one way or the other. And we've got until 11:59 tonight. Does Adu Thiero stay in the NBA draft as expected? Percentages have been high for me that he does stay in 95 to 99%. But there's just been enough little things here and there to suggest that maybe there's a chance. So I don't completely rule it out. And we're going to get to that part of it first. When I put out the announcement that I was going to do this podcast about 25 minutes ago, we're going to talk about a new hog and what they said to me. So we're going to spend more time on that, but let's go ahead and because I've actually have new intel on Adu Thiero. Take it for what it's worth. Yesterday, one of my NBA sources, and the segment was centered around this, was that he's got at least one draft guarantee. Adu Thiero, it's in the second round, and would be, I didn't get where in the second round, which team or what pick, but the idea was it would be something that would be, you could bank maybe a couple of years in the contract of guaranteed money. And then how good is that is going to be based on where the pick is. So I don't know that. I didn't know that. I don't know that. So that was one more piece of information for you. And the other part of that is that some NBA teams, maybe a handful, had a first round grade for him, if not for questions about the knee, which then, could create a situation where, well, do I go back to school and do this again and prove that this is okay, get a lot of really good NIL money, maybe more in 1 year than I would get on a second year draft guarantee in the first year, probably not spread out over two, but the first year. And then I also delay my pro clock, and getting my pro career going. I mean, there's things to consider, but I think the decision's probably baked in that he stays in, but I'm not 100%. Well, today's new intel, we came on, I think around 4:20, 4:30 yesterday. Since then, I've had another one of my NBA sources reach out to me unsolicited, just because they know we've been going back and forth at different times, and they wanted to give me the latest they were hearing since we were on the eve of the decision. Or it's tonight. Tonight, it's not the eve, it'll be tonight. And so this source said, I'm going to quote, it's in quotations, word is Thiero is staying in the draft. That's it. And then that was followed up with, he said something else. I guess we'll know by midnight. I'm paraphrasing that part. I didn't write that part down, but that was the second part of what was said in that text to me. So again, I hadn't, this was just coming back to me, circling back to me, one of my NBA sources about what they think Adu Thiero is going to do based on what they're gathering. Again, these are people connected in the NBA. This is not anecdotal. Hey, I got a pal who hears what everybody else is hearing and is just regurgitating that. No, it's valuable stuff. Now, the real value is in terms of what Thiero is going to do and what his mental process is, selection process, decision process, the whole thing. Where is he at today? The staff has told me, more than once that they don't believe, they think it's highly unlikely that he returns. But that he's got a spot. So that's the Adu Thiero update. As we're just over 4 minutes in, that's the latest intel on that. Just another voice saying, connected with the NBA, saying they think he's going to stay in the draft. No one knows for sure until, and this is the interesting thing, Thiero doesn't have to make any announcement, or it doesn't have to come from one of these folks that are, drilled down and tied closely to the NBA draft. A lot of times you'll see stuff from a Jonathan Givony or somebody like that, with a stay or pro decision. Once it becomes known, go ahead and putting it out there. That could obviously happen. Thiero could put something out on his Instagram or do something on his own. Clutch could do something, I guess. So we're just in kind of wait mode to get the official word if we hear anything. I guess if he's coming back to school, we'll hear that. That'll definitely be something we see one way or another. If he stays in, I'm assuming, I bet odds are we'll also get something from somebody saying, look, he's just going to stay in. That's typically how this goes. So we're going to know again, like my recent source said, my most recent one on Thiero, we're gonna know by midnight, LOL, for sure. Either way, and that's true. So we're gonna find out today. By the way, I'm coming back on here to do a live reaction show. I don't care when it is. We're gonna do it as soon as we know something. So if it breaks while I'm on here, then it breaks while I'm here, and this will turn into that. All right, so let's move on to new business. There is a new Razorback, Pittsburgh native, class of 2025, multi-sport athlete, Amir Brown, Amere, last name Brown, same spelled just like the color, Brown, Brown. And so, this is somebody who, when I look at last year's roster, when you looked at the top 9 rotation and then the additional pieces that were added to that roster that help you in practice, scout team stuff, great locker room presence kind of guys that fit the culture. Remember, this is what Calipari talks about. Any member of this team has got to check those boxes in terms of the culture fit and it, good for the program, good, conducive to a good locker room and winning and being at your best. So this came out yesterday, and I don't want to screw this guy's name up, but he's a journalist in Pittsburgh, does a lot of podcasts on multiple sports, doesn't just cover basketball. But his name is Thiero Newhouse Godine. And he is the one that reported this news that Amir Brown is part of Arkansas's men's basketball program. If you look at the thumbnail photo that I use, the graphic that I use for this segment, that's his graphic. That's Theo's graphic, and how he announced on social media that Amir Brown was part of Arkansas's basketball program. Big time pals with Malik Thomas, Arkansas's 5-star freshman guard. They come in together as freshmen. And so I view Brown, 5'10", 5'11-ish point guard. A couple of years ago, I think I noticed back in 2023, he picked up a couple of offers for basketball, Division I from Bryant and Cal Poly. And so those had been reported again back in 2023. So at some point in time, picking up D1 offers for basketball. I saw some highlights of him as a football player. Researched all this when, once Nick Pringle went to IG and put a little mini video out and tagged this young man. And you saw multiple guys sitting around Malik Thomas in the Basketball Performance Center. And then I went on my wild goose chase after that. I reached out to Thiero and some other folks to confirm this and got it confirmed. But what's interesting is about this to me is we've seen the roster construction consistently the last 2 years. And right now, with Carter Knox back and still waiting on a do Thiero, again, we think he stays in the draft. You're at a 10 deep, but you're still going to fill out. You can go to 15, and you're going to fill out with guys who will officially be on scholarship, but effectively a walk-on, and then guys that are at least one, maybe two, that are actual walk-ons in terms of how, just the logistics of, are they actually on an athletic scholarship or are they not? But some of these guys, whether they are or not, are lumped in that same group of just kind of being scout team guys, being good for the team, all those things we talked about. And you need bodies for practice, and you need, like I said, a healthy locker room. And so I think they're off to a great start. I mean, you got Jaden Carroll-Letwood coming back. So he's, is a returning player that fits into that mold. But I think this is off to a great start in terms of a new addition for something like that, because a young man's got personality. I do like I do with all recruits. Once I report, and I put this on Twitter last night, once I go to Twitter and announce something about a player, whatever, something significant, whether it's an offer or a visit or commitment, something like that, or they're on the team, whatever, I go and send them a link to what I publish so they see what it is. And so when I looked him up on Twitter and found his whatever avatar, whatever his handle is, it said he was already following me on Twitter. So that was good. So once I followed him, we could communicate. So I sent him a DM with this. And he just sent back, here's congratulations on joining the Razorbacks. Welcome to Arkansas. That's all I said. Sent him a link to the tweet. And he responded to that with the old heart emoji. That was last night. So this morning, bright and early, he shot me a DM back saying, "Hey, I appreciate you." And he said, "What are the baseball games like?" And I mean, I started smiling from ear to ear because I'm thinking, all right, this guy's already engaged. He's already buying into the culture because we know Arkansas is going to host the regional, the Diamond Hogs, this weekend. So he's asking me about that. So we started going back and forth a little bit. And I said, "Look, you're going to love it. That atmosphere out there is incredible. You're going to have a lot of fun." He goes, "Yeah, I'm going. I'll be there Friday." So Hog fans know this. What the newest Razorback, Amir Brown, a guard, joining the Hogs for the 2025-26 season and on the roster, is going to be catching the Diamond Hogs, probably with teammates, I'm assuming, this weekend. But then I asked him, I said, "Hey, by the way, just anything you want to say to Razorback Nation now that we're chatting here?" And this is what he said. I've written this down. This is the quotation. I tweeted it out. "Show love and support because this is a national championship contender." So it's the right thing to say if you're on the team, right? I think most players are going to say that if you ask them, "Well, how good do you think you are?" I didn't ask it that way. I said, "What do you want to tell Razorback Nation?" And that's what he wanted to tell you guys. And I thought that was really cool because one thing is, that's what you should be saying if you're on that team, whether you're projected as a stud starter somewhere in the rotation or, again, just part of the team. You should be talking like that. You shouldn't be saying brash stuff that doesn't make any sense. But the other part of this is if Arkansas truly is, and we've talked about it the last 2 days when we were talking Carter Knox's decision to come back, Arkansas now being a legitimate, when you see these top 10 rankings, preseason stuff by some of these different outlets, and Arkansas's in that back end of that top 10, you're not far off from the idea that you're a national championship contender. Maybe you are, as is. I said it yesterday before this young man ever spoke to me. I said it on yesterday's show when we revisited the Carter Knox decision. I ended that pod by saying, "Look, Arkansas legitimately, when I look at everything they have as is, if they add nobody else and if Thiero doesn't come back, they've got the makings, assuming they survive attrition and don't just implode shooting from distance, which is a possibility." I mean, that's one of the concerns when you look at it. But aside from that, if you survive those things, this could be a final weekend run kind of team just based on the talent, based on the retention, and based on what they do well, what everybody does well, what their strengths are, not what they're lacking. So this comment, you love to hear it for multiple reasons. One is you want players to buy in if they're there. And the other part of that is if there's some truth to that and assessing it objectively that they're not far from it if they're not a title contender, that's what they're talking about inside those doors. Those new players coming in, they need to be thinking like that. They need to be hearing that kind of stuff. Again, it's not unrealistic. It's not unrealistic. So I like that. The other thing he said, he thought, this is one thing I want to add in that he told me. He said that the vibes are great in Fayetteville. He goes, it's different than where he's from, obviously coming from Pittsburgh, but he really likes it. He's embracing it. So, a newcomer just got here type of thing. That team just moved on to campus. But this is a really, one that already to me has the earmark of somebody that fans are going to really like. And so this is technically, when we look at the 10 players with a true two deep, when you go 8 players, and then Isaiah Seeley, Kareem Artal, that gets you to 10. Jaden Carroll-Letwa, that's the 11th man on the team. And now we know of a 12th guy. We know of a 12th guy, Amir Brown. All right, 15 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. All right, so we got a little bit of news here for you on a Thiero. Again, it's just the latest thought from inside the NBA circles that he's going to stay in the draft. Just one more, I guess, I won't call it a brick because I don't think there's anything that keeps this from being a good spin for Arkansas. So it's not a negative. If he comes back it's great for the team. If he stays in and gets drafted, and you hope maybe he finds a way to go in the late first round, be another first round pick, another feather in Calipari's cap, which will also be the first Calipari Arkansas player to be drafted. Even if it's not the first round, he gets a good deal and it's early second round. It's still a win. It's still a win for the program. It's good for your recruiting. It's good for your brand. So I don't want to use negative words like, well, we get it, with one more brick thrown at us, he's not coming back. It's still a good thing if he stays in. And so I'm not trying to be Pollyannish about it and kid myself. Oh, you're just trying to, mask over. So, you're seeing players that are in the same draft projections as Thiero coming back to school because NIL's good. There should be no expectation for him to do just because others are. He's got at least one guarantee from a source telling me this inside the NBA that I trust. So he's got one, even though it's second round, that still can be good, profitable, and get you on your path. Training for the pro game is much different than coming back to school and having another year. The coaching's different. The game is different. I've said it all the time. I joke about it. It's almost a different sport. And you don't have classes to worry about. You've moved on to being a professional. You can really drill down on what you're doing, what you need to do to get better and help yourself get from playing some in the G League to helping your team off the bench. And part of the puzzle of a real NBA roster. And then you're also getting closer to your second contract where the real money and opportunities for generational wealth start to come in. So all that's in play here. Good for Adou Thiero if he stays in. If he comes back, I'm going to say good for him because that's the choice he made. And I'm going to say great for Arkansas because now you go from back in top 10-ish, maybe some have you ranked 10 to 20, to being a legitimate top 5 preseason candidate. When you look at the national rankings, someone might jump out there and say, look, I got him as my preseason number 1. But then the national contender stuff takes even another step if Thiero were to come back. All right, 17 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. We appreciate that. It helps us out. Let's talk a little J.J. Andrews, recent Arkansas commit. We know that. We've talked a lot about him, the 6'6" wing at a Little Rock Christian Academy, just going nuts at now 3 sessions into the Nike EYBL season. The spring part of it's over. They'll pick back up in July as they ramp into the Peach Jam, which is the elite championship for Nike EYBL, which is the top circuit out there. And there's other good ones, but it's the best. But JJ got a bump, and I think 247 Sports moved him up to 17th. I think they had him outside, if I'm not mistaken, outside the top 30 until this bump, but they still have him as a 4-star on their rankings. I think Rivals has him at 40th. I mean, this is malpractice. It's so funny. Some of the talking points, well, he moved up because he's proven it over the spring. He was proving it last summer. He's proved it. He's proved it for the longest time. I go back to the Moses Moody thing. I made that comparison in terms of the malpractice in some of these rankings and specifically to individual players. And I don't do this. I don't go to bat for this for every Arkansas kid that's underranked. I'll say in general they're not ranked high enough, and I might say it specifically. But in the case of a guy that's easily identifiable as a 5-star, and you're slotting him several spots away from that, something ain't jiving there. And so that's the case with Andrews, such as it was with Moses Moody, who I pounded my chest over when he proved in the SEC as a freshman, arguably the greatest freshman season ever as a Razorback, and then went on and became a lottery pick in the NBA, and a guy that clearly was a 5-star when you look at the landscape and what the rankings should have recognized and didn't. It was right in front of them. J.J. Andrews, I see it the same way. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't continue to climb and be everybody's 5-star. He should be. But to see that bump, just real quickly, now that he's through 3 Nike EYBL sessions, it's 11 games that he's played in, that his team has played in. They're 9-2. Nike has EYBL has an efficiency rating or an impact rating that they give all their players. And they have him ranked 5th out of everybody on the Nike EYBL circuit. That's incredible when you look at the sheer numbers of 5-stars and high-level guys they have on that circuit. He's 5th in their player impact ratios or ratings. But he's averaging 19.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, nearly 2 assists, 1.9 assists, 1.4 steals, shooting up nearly 61% from 2-point range. He did have an 0 for 4 game this last weekend, which dropped him from 50% from three down to 43%, but that's still elite numbers. I mean, he's 13 of 30. It's a low volume. We talked about that on one of these when we're really trying to figure out what, because his 3-point game has grown, but it's mostly about the efficiency. You got to start there. Mostly off catch and shoot or one dribble and reset. Not a lot of, pounding to create one of those, some of those big step moves we see guys that can do that. He's not there yet with some of that extra stuff to set up a 3-point shot. For him, he's proven less is more. And in basketball, the higher up you go, that actually ends up becoming true unless you have a superpower like some guys like Steph Curry and Dame Lillard and some others. There's others, not quite on their level, but I like the fact that he knows who he is as a player and he's showing more and more. But this guy's been a 5-star for a while, but 43.3% from three. You'll take that all day long for somebody that has progressed to the point where he's putting up elite numbers shooting from distance. So good for J.J. Andrews. I'm always going to continue to refer to him as a 5-star. I did the same thing with Moses Moody, even after technically he dropped out. It's just, it's ridiculous. And that's not, again, Homer. That is objective evaluation and comparing them against their peers. I don't go and watch cut mashups of highlights and just the good stuff. I go in the trenches and watch all of it. I'm seeing the good and the bad out there, and no player is perfect. Everybody has room to improve. Certainly, J.J. Andrews continues to improve and has more to add to his game. But this dude is a 5-star stud. All right, nearly 22 minutes in. I'm about to wrap this up. In the coming days, we've got more recruiting intel for you, stuff I'm still working on. Even though the bulk of visit season is going to be, probably in the fall through, maybe into some basketball games next season. That's okay because there's a lot going on. And it includes some of the stuff we'll be talking about, the potential for guys to reclass, which means things can happen, from 2026 to 2025 and be added late to the current roster, which means those things can happen in real time at any time. It doesn't, you're not just fall and basketball season watching and anticipating for visits, but it's other stuff too. So we're going to have a lot to talk about, some scheduling stuff that I keep having intentions to come back and talk about, but I really want to spend more time on right now because we have this deadline today on the stuff we've talked about, and this new addition to the roster, even though it's not projected addition for your too deep and your playable depth, it's still nice to have. And it's, being able to say that the guy had Division I offers is cool. It's not like he didn't. And I think when you look at the roster as constructed now, with no new additions, this idea when the young man says show love and support because this is a national championship contender, that's not just talk. I mean, there's a real path there for this team as constructed. So, all right, we're going to now sign off. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. If something breaks soon on a do Thiero, I'm jumping right back in here to do a reaction show. Either way, we're going to do it. If we find out at the last minute, I guess I'll be coming on around midnight because we're going to do it in real time and not wait till the next day. I'm going to have something. I'm going to be ready to go with that. And anything else, any other developments that happen that we need to come on, we'll do it. But if not, probably hear back from me. Again, with Thiero, either way, I'm coming back on tonight, but I plan to be back on tomorrow as well. That's the point, even if it's in the evening. But until next time, thanks for being here. Appreciate all of you. See you soon.